Welcome to the Powercast with Charlie Johnson. I'm one of the world's leading fitness and transformation coaches. I'm going to be providing you with the tools to build your ultimate body and mind. So absolute pleasure today to have Kris Gethin on the Powercast. So superstar who's moved from Wales now over to the US. So anyone who doesn't know who Kris is, you haven't probably been around in the fitness game for a very long time. So he's huge reputation, achieved a huge amount. He's an incredible businessman and great pleasure to have him on the podcast. So thank you very much for coming on today.
Thank you very much for having me on, Charlie. It's my pleasure.
So just tell us a little bit about yourself, Kris, and like where you originally came from and how your journey sort of transitioned, because I think it's quite an interesting story.
Yeah, sure. As you said, the weird accent comes from Wales. And, I grew up on a farm there, as most people in Wales do. Well, definitely all my family.
Deep farm?
It was a medium-sized farm. I'd say, there's a lot of farms out there now, particularly today, that are a lot larger. They have more people, working on there, where it's usually just a family affair, and that's what it was with us. But, had the usual things, the sheep, the chicken, the horses, donkeys, all sorts, And, I really enjoyed my time working and being and having adventure on the farm, because I think it made me kind of independent. I'd say it certainly made me a bit of a hermit, which has probably adversely affect me and my longevity. People who live a long time generally have good connections. And I generally don't have a huge amount of connections. I have a very small social circle because I like my own company, But I grew up there and I raced motocross. That was my sporting endeavor. Again, I was never into team sports or anything like that. So I raced motocross for about over 15 years. And it wasn't until my career came to a stop because of back issues that accumulated over time and various other injuries, that I came across bodybuilding.
What sort of age were you then, Kris?
I would have been mid-20s, early to mid-20s. I came across bodybuilding. And in my early 20s, when I'd stopped racing motocross, I was about 20 years old. Obviously, that had, it had become my identity. And I felt like I'd lost my identity all of a sudden, and I wasn't getting that endorphin rush that I lived off. I lived off the adrenaline. So I turned to alcohol, drugs, partying. It was the start of the rave scene back then. And, it wasn't good for me, but that was the only thing that I was surrounded by with friends at the time. So it's all I knew. And it didn't make me feel good. It made me feel good for that weekend. But during the week, I was in a slump. And I'd gone to osteopaths, I'd gone to massage therapists, and nothing helped my back issues until I actually started doing resistance exercise through physio. And when I was alleviated of that pain, I felt better. I felt more confident. I had a little bit more clarity because by default, I started eating a little healthier. And when I started studying about health, fitness, bodybuilding, and what it can actually do, I started retaining that content because I absolutely sucked at school. I hated school. And when I started retaining that content, I realized it was something that I had a passion for. I'd become obsessed with it. So then I went to college full-time for 3 years to study international health and fitness and sports therapy. And that was basically then my ticket, my qualification, which was internationally recognized, to get me out of Wales. So then I worked on cruise liners for a while. And then after 8 months, I moved to Australia and worked as a personal trainer there. Then further from that, a couple of years later, I was able to afford my first gym. So I purchased a gym. And then during that time, I realized that I could reach many more people as opposed to transforming people one-on-one if I was to write articles for publication. So I taught myself how to write articles through Merriam-Webster's book on journalism and grammatical writing, and started submitting my content. And when it started to get received and published, I decided to give everything up and risk everything by moving to the mecca of bodybuilding, Venice, California, to see if I could get a job. Yeah, so 6 months later, I got a contract with Weeder Publications for as a photographer and a writer, because I taught myself photography as well, to have images to accompany the articles that I was submitting. And so I was there then for several years, and I published my own magazine for about 2 years after that. And it was during that time I got the attention of Ryan DeLuca, the then founder of bodybuilding.com, to interview for the editor-in-chief position. So then I interviewed for it. I got that position. So I moved from LA to Boise, Idaho, where I do reside today, as the editor-in-chief. And I was competing. By the way, I was competing. I competed in my first bodybuilding show in '99 in Pontypridd in Wales. I had no idea there was such a thing as natural bodybuilding shows. Yeah. However, I competed as a natural in an untested show. I managed to get second. I was by far the smallest. But I dieted on 0 carbs for 8 weeks. I didn't know any better, so I got very, very lean, which was
it the fish and asparagus diet?
Yeah, pretty much. I was delirious, dude. Like, I remember going to an ATM machine and actually thanking the ATM machine when it gave me the money, because I wasn't thinking straight. I remember like putting the coffee in the fridge and driving past my turning on the way home. I was in a completely different space, but it worked. The suffering gave me some type of success. And when I went to Australia, I continued to compete then in natural shows when I realized there was such a thing as natural bodybuilding, and continued to do so in the US as well until I got second place in the natural worlds in 2006. And then in 2009, I decided to hang up the trunks because I never really liked competing, to be honest with you. I like the process. I like the journey. I like the sense of urgency and the transparency of being on stage and nothing but your underwear. You can't really hide anywhere. I just didn't like the actually being on stage and a pose in and all that sort of stuff. So I gave that up and decided then to actually transform on video and using these daily video trainers to help people go from A to B, not necessarily to compete, but to get into shape and give themselves a form of discipline that seems to be a dying breed today. So I always like to practice some form of discipline. It isn't always the priority isn't for health. Of course, my priority is health, but I don't always just take cold showers because I know it's anti-inflammatory. I take my cold showers every day because it's a form of discipline. So,
do you have any other daily habits like that in the morning or morning routines?
Yeah, I make sure that I don't check my phone for a good half hour. I don't go on the phone for an hour before bed. I don't watch any TV or go on the computer or anything like that before bed either. I make sure that I never hit a snooze button if I have the alarm. I got to make sure that I kind of jump out of bed first thing in the morning. Yeah, and at these times if I have doubt and it's pissing down with rain or it's snowing, I'll usually lace up and go out for a run because everything in your bones is telling you not to do it. And that's just weakness, excuse, and doubt creeping in. And as I get older, I don't want to become fragile. So I have to, try to push myself that little bit harder as I get a little bit longer in the tooth, I guess.
No, that's fascinating. And from there, where did you transition from there then, Kris?
From there, then I started my own food line called Nutrition by Design, and it was kind of like a pot noodle. And this is going back in 2000.
Do they have pot noodles in the US?
No, they don't have pot noodles, but they have something similar where you had the boiling water to your plastic cup or your paper cup, and then all of a sudden 5 minutes later you've got a meal. So I had various meals with a business partner that we created, and then I moved to India because I'd released a book about this time, and that was called Body by Design. And I was asked to go to India to actually do a launch and a talk and a seminar at an expo over there. And whilst I was there, a celebrity picked up that book from my now business partner, Jag Chima, and he wanted me to transform him. And so I flew over there again and gave him a consultation and decided that I would train him. Now, initially, it wasn't through... it wasn't through an option that I would have gone for. The reason being I decided to move to India is because I was kicked out of the US. My immigration lawyer had not applied for my extension. And when bodybuilding.com was asking for all the paperwork, they found something suspicious. They warned me of it, and then we found that he hadn't applied for my extension. So I had to leave the country immediately and apply for a waiver to come back into the country. This was a lot harder than anticipated. So that's when I decided, well, you know what? I'm not going to twiddle my thumbs in Wales. I'm going to go to India and train this celebrity. So I started training. I transformed him in 9 weeks. We were initially going to do it in 12 weeks, but, you know, he responded very, very well. And we transformed him in 9 weeks, and it got like front page press and TV. So then I had other celebrities wanting me to transform him. So then I started flying in other trainers to transform these people, because the education was definitely lacking in India. So from then we decided, well, you know what, there's an opportunity to open gyms here, because a lot of the gyms are not well equipped. The personal trainers are not recognized or educated. So we wanted to bring something to the country that was a full-fledged world-class facility, but what we'd consider an academy of education as well. So we launched the Kris Gethin Gyms franchise. And once we did, I moved back to the US, because now I had my green card, and I started what is now Kaged Muscle Supplements. So it's a supplement line that is like naturally colored, naturally flavored. We use only patented and fermented and organic ingredients. So I really wanted to merge the health sector with the sports supplement sector, which is a very distant cousin between the both, unfortunately. So I wanted to merge those together. So that kind of brings me up to date of what I'm doing today from a business standpoint. And from a physical standpoint, like I said, I gave up bodybuilding in 2009. I won my final show and decided...
Went out on a high then.
Yeah, went out on a high, but the thing is, I didn't feel any better winning a show or coming second, to be honest with you, because you still go into that abyss. You're so disciplined. You're so scheduled. Everything is numbers by the time of day that you eat your meal or you wake up, or the amount of macros. And then when you finish, you just cross into this abyss, and I'd cross into this abyss of major depression. So I figured, okay, this is not for me. I don't want to, diet down and get ready for a competition and have a high on that day and then go into an abyss of depression for 4 to 6 weeks. So then I've always done cardio every day, a lot of the time twice a day, and a lot of people thought that was crazy, and clients even thought it wasn't convenient for them trying to put on muscle. So that's when I decided, well, I'm gonna do something extreme to show you that you can retain your muscle and participate in endurance activity. You just need to be smart with it. So that's when I decided to start competing in ultramarathon, Ironman events, Spartan, things like that, but continuing to train as a bodybuilder.
That fascinates me in that terms of that transition, because I was like observing you through that sort of period. Did you notice any like physiological changes in your body in terms of recovery, or how you felt, or like in terms of nutritionally, how you were trying to have to fuel your body? I imagine you had to ramp up your carbohydrates quite a lot due to energy demands.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I definitely become basically like a running buffet. The main difference that I found that I really had to change, because I'm a very high volume trainer, and I honestly thought, well, this is gonna be good for me. This is gonna benefit me, because I usually train with a lot of intensity and a lot of volume. But I quickly found that I was overtraining by doing so. So then I brought my volume down, because I usually train like 20 to 50 reps. I like the challenge, and my body seems to respond well with it. So then I had to bring my repetitions down to more like the 10 to 15. Otherwise, I'd just severely overtrain. And that worked well. I'd just target my fast twitch muscle fibers for my workouts. And it would usually be a little bit of the fast twitch if I was doing hill sprints, but mostly the slow twitch when it came to my endurance. So I made sure that there was no crossover there. And I'd use my workouts as a pre-fatigue for my endurance. So I'd maybe hit a crazy leg workout and then go do some hill sprints or go for a long bike ride and maybe hit back and triceps before going for my swim.
All in one day?
Yeah. Well, no, I wouldn't do all of that in one day. I'd only hit one workout and one cardio. So I'd train 4 to 5 days a week, and I'd do cardio every day. So that cardio would usually only be an hour during the week, 1 hour, but then I'd have to get comfortable being uncomfortable on the weekends, because obviously if I'm doing an Ironman event, it's a lot of time in the saddle that you have to condition yourself for, a lot of time on your feet that you're running that you have to condition yourself for. So I'd usually go for like my 100-mile bike ride, for instance, on a Saturday, and then maybe like a 12-mile run on a Sunday. But during the week, you know, it'd be very, very short and intense, and I'd just be working my cardiovascular engine from an anaerobic standpoint more than anything. You know, so I didn't overtrain on the days that I was weight training.
How did you adjust your nutrition to that and sort of supplements with what you were doing?
The nutrition was pretty much the same, you know, in regards to the macros, the macro ratios.
Just increased.
Except for the weekends, then I'd go very, very high carbs, because I would go, like I said, like 100 miles. And, you know, at my body weight, about 220 pounds, you know, I go through a lot of wattage, a lot of power. So I go through a lot of calories. I'd sweat a lot. And sometimes I'd be facing a lot of headwinds, or I'd decide to go for a very hilly ride, or
you just carry that weight around, isn't it?
Yeah, more than anything, because I'd bike and run with some other people that were triathletes. And, you know, they'd have a couple of gels and a couple of bars, and they were good. I had to have a backpack full of food. And I'd have instead of having just carbs in my shakers, in my bottles, I'd have my protein in there, I'd have my creatine in there, I'd have my BCAAs, my amino acids, pretty much everything that a bodybuilder would consume, except obviously you need to maintain that muscle protein synthesis in a higher value. And obviously you'd go through a lot more protein, because you are kind of overtraining to a certain degree. And I just found that I had to use a lot of ice. So I'd be in cryotherapy units several times a week. I'd have cold baths with ice several times a week, just to remove the inflammation from my lower body.
Is that where the fascination with sort of the cold showers sort of came into your habit? You got used to do?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I'd done a lot of it before. Even when I was in college, I used to have sauna and then jump in the snow during winter. You know, I just always liked that hot and cold thermogenesis. Just woke me up, made me feel good. And like I said, it was practicing another form of discipline. And our ancestors had to deal with extreme heats and extreme cold. They didn't have fireplaces and air conditioning. And I just like to take myself back to the ancestral design. You know, we all talk about the trendy biohacking these days, but a lot of the biohacks are, you know, low-hanging fruit that's free to us. We just have to reverse our aging process 100 years or so to appreciate it.
Have you, are you into yoga out of interest, Kris?
Yeah, yoga. I do like various types of yoga, something that's very easy. And meditation, I like to use Emily Fletcher's Ziva meditation. You know, I used to do a lot of hot yoga. You know, when I did my first video trainer back in 2009, you'd see in there, I was doing hot yoga, and, you know, it just kicked my ass. The only thing that I didn't like about Bikram yoga is very repetitive. It's the same moves every time. So I transitioned away from that.
No, I can imagine it gets stale quite quickly.
Yeah. But yoga's great. You know, I should do more of it, to be honest with you. You know, none of us really find stretching appealing. But it's something that we have to do, especially as we get older. And obviously with muscle tissue, it's very easy to become very stiff. And, you know, that's where injuries come in.
And I particularly imagine with the training volume you were doing with the like long endurance work, you imagine you just tighten up super fast.
Yeah, massages and foam rolling and, you know, various types of trigger point therapy was definitely needed.
What's the plans for you going forward then? What's the next plan, physique-wise, training-wise, general goals-wise, and that side of things?
Well, last year I competed in a couple more Ironman events, but I decided I wanted to lose muscle. So again, you know, weirdly enough, it was just me practicing another form of discipline. I'd had shoulder surgery, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to make a different goal up this year now, because of course it'd be very easy for me to get depressed if I didn't have a goal to work towards. I find training very therapeutic. It's my AA batteries. And of course, I couldn't weight train how I like to weight train. So I decided, you know what, I'm just going to put everything into endurance and try to lose as much muscle as I possibly can. Let's see if I could follow that through. mentally as much as physically. So I followed like a cyclical keto diet with intermittent fasting. Up until this point, I hadn't missed a meal in 18 years. People may find that hard to believe, but that's kind of how dedicated I was to the craft. So I followed intermittent fasting with a cyclical keto approach, and I dropped from like 220 pounds down to 197, I believe. I wasn't a lean 197 by any means. It's funny, people think that if you run a lot and cycle a lot, you just get shredded. But if you're not following a higher protein diet and some low intensity work, it definitely doesn't happen. It didn't happen with me. But I did that, and then earlier this year, I decided, well, let me just see if I can put the muscle back on now. So that was the goal. And so far, I am back up to 220, probably not back to the fullness that I was yet, but I guess it's probably because I am still doing a lot of running and swimming and cycling, etc. And I don't feel like I need to get any bigger, or I don't want to get any bigger. But my goal this year physically is have no goals whatsoever, because I've always competed in something since the age of 5, whether it be motocross or downhill mountain bike racing or bodybuilding, and then Ironman and triathlon and ultramarathon. I do some 5Ks and some 10Ks and half marathons, but nothing severe further from that. So the goal is to not compete in anything this year, but I'm just biohacking my health as much as I possibly can. So I just had my blood reports done again last week. I have my hair follicle results coming in this week. I'm doing everything that I possibly can to hack my environment on top of my environment. Do you
have any tips or nuggets of information on that? Anything cool you've picked up in the last 6-12 months that you think?
Yeah, so I use what's called a PEMF device, pulsed electronic magnetic field therapy. So I do have a mat that I lie on, and I'll do that for about 30 minutes a day. It kind of charges your cells. I make sure that I ground myself every morning. I meditate. Do you just
like deep breathing on that, or?
Yeah, on the PEMF device? Yeah. No. I just sit there. Maybe I'm reading a book or something like that. It's just, it's just charged. It's not so much like electric stimulation. It's just charging your cells, with negative ions. And with negative ions as well, I earth myself, I ground myself every day, because obviously with our electrical devices, our computer, EMF rays, Wi-Fi, we are completely charged all the time. So it's good to ground yourself and get rid of a lot of that charge. So I do that every morning. Like I said, I meditate every day as well. I'll stretch. I make sure that I wear my blue light blocking glasses a lot of the time when I'm traveling. It's like last night I did a seminar here in the Limelight Hotel. So I just have artificial light around me. And I know if I'm absorbing that artificial light through my retina, my brain thinks it's daylight even though it's dark outside. So my brain isn't releasing the melatonin that it should, so I can sleep and get my deep and REM sleep cycles intact. So I make sure that I wear those blue light blocking glasses. If I'm traveling a lot and I don't have access to get outside and have the sun. So a couple of weeks ago, I was in India for 2 weeks because we opened another gym there. So I knew if I couldn't get the sun, I had to hack that environment. So I have an infrared panel called a Juve panel. I have one at home, but I have a mobile one as well. So I make sure that I get a lot of the restorative red light from my Juve panel.
Do you use anything to track your sleep, Kris?
Yes, I use like an Aura ring.
Yeah,
I also have and I also have a BioStrap, and obviously there's the Whoop. They're all very accurate. I just prefer to usually wear a ring to track my sleep, because I had a real bad problem just after I came out of India, or just before I got out of India. I was sleeping like 3 hours a night, and I used to pat myself on the back for it, because I was like, yeah, you're a warrior. You can kick, you can destroy, and still, have the most badass workouts and kick people's ass in the gym. And it started to affect me mentally during the day. I didn't really recognize it in the beginning. When I look back at the books that I've written during that time, I'm like, wow, who was that guy? So I tried absolutely everything, every type of supplement, medication, every type of hack. And it wasn't until I went to Dr. Spanaug's clinic in 2015 when I had like 62 blood tests. I had the hair follicle test, the stool samples, urine samples, and I also had a brain scan. And collectively, we could see that I had mold toxicity because I have a lot of sensitivity towards molds. So I stayed there for 6 weeks for severe hard detoxification, colonic hydrotherapy every day. I was on IV 5 days a week, vegan diet, organic, humane raised, grass fed, etc. And I've had to work very, very hard since then to stay on top of that. So the coffee that I drink, I make sure it's mycotoxin free. Same with the grains. If I was to have a glass of red wine every now and again, I make sure that the particular brand is sourced from a place that doesn't have mold spores or anything like that. I make sure that I drink very clean water, that I only eat humane raised or organic or grass-fed, etc. I make sure that I don't expose myself to glyphosate, herbicides, pesticides as much as possible, because I know the effect that it can have on me. And since I've been doing that and tracking that, I feel so much better. And, I don't have inflammation in my body that I once did. I don't have the bloatedness in my gut that I once did. I don't have the brain fog. One of the things that I did earlier this year, I traveled to Colombia and I had stem cells. I had stem cells put into my elbows, my shoulders, and my knees, pretty much everywhere that I know that will have wear and tear, because I don't have any plans on slowing down anytime soon. But, when I get to a 90 or 100 years old, I don't want to live with any regret with the training that I put myself through today. So that really helps as a preventative measure, all this technology and biohacks that we have available to us, as long as I'm participating in a low-hanging fruit. So like intermittent fasting obviously helps with stem cell production. So I practice that. But if I can get additional stem cells and I can afford it, I certainly will. So I'll probably do that every couple of years moving forward as well.
Have you noticed any difference since you had the stem cell therapy out of interest?
Yeah, massive difference. So it really helped with the regeneration of my shoulder since I had the surgery. I don't have zero pain or zero discomfort in my joints. I'm 45 years old now, and I've put my body through a lot. I've had a lot of injuries, mostly outside of the gym. Torn lat, torn pec, torn hamstring, torn tendons in my ankles 7 times, in my wrist, broken ankles, broken wrists, things like that. And I don't feel any of it. The stem cells are absolutely amazing. But, I ensured that I went outside of the country of the US to get it, because they can legally harvest it there over a couple of weeks. And I went to somewhere where they actually bank the stem cells as well. So I had a full tour through the facilities. I recorded it for my podcast and my YouTube channel. So, they wouldn't do that if they had anything to hide. And I'd known a couple of people that went to that particular place before me anyway, so it came as a referral.
Yeah, that's something I was going to ask you, if that was something that's regularly available in the US or Europe, because it's not something I've really heard of anyone using before.
Yeah, it is available, but just not to the degree. So I was able to get over 200 million stem cells there that you can't get that in the US or the UK. And it'll cost, if I was to have something like that in the US, it'd probably cost me north of $45,000. I did my research, but it's a lot less if you go to another country. Much like, for instance, medicine. If I was to get a Ventolin inhaler over here in the US, it'll probably cost me $100. It cost me $3 if I went to Mexico for the same thing.
It's madness.
Yeah, for sure.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's the goal. And with the business, like I said, we just opened our eighth gym in India. And with Kaged Muscle Supplements, we're doing very well there. We're being recognized by the right people. We don't put any money into marketing because we decide to put all the money into the actual research and the products as well. So that can be difficult when you're in a market of every company saying we're the best. So we just, focus on quality, and hopefully we will gain people's loyalty when they try the products.
What I think is good though, like the way you carry yourself and conduct yourself and lead by example is something I'm a big fan of. So I was speaking, as I said to you before we went on the show, about I was at a seminar in Barcelona at the weekend, and for me, like I was getting up early, I was going to breakfast training, and I came back to breakfast to have my post-workout meal, and then going to the seminar while like other people are rolling in hungover. Like for me, it's a big thing about leading by example and practicing what I preach. And like for me, I can tell with you're exactly the same, like with that, which I think everyone have so much buy into your gyms and everything you do because you love what you do, and that comes across in like the way you conduct yourself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. And, selfishly, I'm going to handpick the equipment that I want in the gym.
And it's the same with supplements as well, though, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Fortunately, I have an amazing formulator who's phenomenal. And he only believes in like the natural flavoring, coloring, and patented and fermented ingredients and stuff like that. So we are all aware, myself and my two business partners, that our margin is tiny. People think, wow, you must be rich. You have a gym franchise and a supplement company. Nothing could be further from the truth. I think what fulfills us more than anything is our purpose and providing value that people pay for, because we all work hard. We've all worked hard. We all have families that work hard. So, we're not here to rip anybody off. We want to provide the absolute best. And so selfishly, we want to do it for ourselves first and just share that.
Yeah, that's an awesome mission to have in itself, to be honest with you. In terms of like India is always something that's fascinated me as a country, and the way the fitness scene is developing there. I think that's amazing how you're involved with such a rapidly growing industry. Is there anything you've seen in particular in trends? Because I've got a few like clients I work with over there, and they do complain, to be fair, about the quality of the gyms, the quality of the trainers, respectfully. And it's great that you're over there trying to improve that industry. Because like for me personally, that's somewhere I'd love to go out to and look to try and explore further what's going on out there.
Yeah, for sure. Well, there's a couple. Well, a lot of people will use the excuse of the gyms aren't good enough, the supplements aren't good enough, we don't get good food here. So that's why I decided, okay, so I've published 7 books now, and one of those books was called Bollywood, Body by Design, where I published like the programs and the diets that I put my Bollywood clients through. And guess what? Is all within India gyms and with Indian foods. And then I decided to do my own transformation there that was published on bodybuilding.com, which is called the 12-week muscle building video trainer. And I did it in India to prove to people you can actually do it. You just have to be hungry for it. But what I really did find in India more than anything, and still do obviously, is the lack of education. Things that come from the UK or the US can very easily get misconstrued there. So the last 2 times I've done a tour, the buzzword is the keto diet, as it is pretty much everywhere. But a lot of people are doing it wrong. They're eating the full fat, saturated fats like the lard, the ghee, and they're not going for the healthier alternatives as they should do, and they're doing it a little bit too strict. I would prefer the cyclical approach, for long-term health. And, things just get misconstrued very easily. There's a lot of myths. People who consider supplements to be steroids. But the problem being with the supplements here, there's a lot of black market supplements. And you can't tell the real from the fake. They are that good. So you just got to make sure that you go to a reputable place to purchase those supplements, not from a market store or anything like that. But the one thing that I have noticed, obviously these Bollywood clients are doing more action roles now, and they're taking their top off, and much like what happened in the US during the 80s with Arnold and Stallone and Van Damme and Dolph Lundgren, is what's happening over there. So the gyms are becoming fuller. People are looking towards supplements and nutrition. They're a motivated bunch. They're very passionate, but the education is just down. So I think it's our duty collectively to try to educate them as much as possible, because a lot of personal trainers there will get their clients on steroids because it's easily available, and they want their clients to get results instead of putting them through and focusing on health and prioritizing their health. These people have no aspirations to jump on stage, but they're taking a lot of steroids. So there's a lot of problems there, and myths and misconceptions that we're constantly trying to debunk. My business partner, Jag Chima, who is based there in London, but he spends a lot of his time in India. He has a company with myself called Physique Global, and we're constantly doing tours there. We just had Branch Warren over there doing a tour, and just trying to educate people, bring more crowds.
Where in India specifically?
Everywhere. We tour everywhere, absolutely everywhere. Bangalore, Hyderabad, Mumbai, Delhi, everywhere. Yeah, Chennai.
What's the biggest challenge you have whilst traveling there, out of curiosity?
The traffic, for sure. There's over a billion. Yeah, there's over 1 billion people there. So, I say the biggest challenge is that everything's late. I say that everyone's on Indian Standard Time there, where I'm very punctual. I'm always on time. I'm always early. So when I was training clients over there, I don't care who they were. If they would show up 15 minutes late, I wouldn't train them that day. I find it very disrespectful. So that's always a challenge, I'd say, is trying to get people to be on time.
That surprises me a little bit, to be fair, because I would have thought that they'd either be one or the other there. But I guess, I don't know, it's supposed to probably make sense to a degree. But compared to, say, like the Arabic culture, where they're so like bulletproof and precise on time, from my own personal experience.
That's true. But again, it's a different culture altogether.
No, 100%. Anyone who's looking to try and move in towards, like, say, from the UK, do anything similar to yourself, then to move out internationally, would you have any tips for anyone, like young, aspiring, incoming people in the fitness industry? Not talking about myself in particular, but just anyone in general. Obviously, you've made some incredible moves, like transitioned around the world as a global trotter, as it were, like exploring. So anything you'd suggest to share with anyone?
Well, it's obviously it's a different world now to when I moved over to the US originally in 2005. With social networking, it's so much easier. I feel, you have people like Simeon Panda that has moved over now and doing very, very well. And I think Martin Ford is going to probably move over very soon as well. It can be easier to get recognized, but the thing is, it's become more competitive at the same time. I recognize my weaknesses, so I don't try to fill those weaknesses. I'd say whatever your strengths are, double down on them, 10x your strengths.
Great.
Don't try to fix your weaknesses. So, I know that collectively I cannot excel in any one thing. I cannot excel in any one thing. So I try to do a lot of things, and collectively I may excel. So it all depends on that person. If you find that you're single-minded and can focus on one thing to excel, whatever that niche is, you just go at it with a cadence. So whether that be on social networking, making sure that you're posting, if not every day or 3 times a week, if it's YouTube or something like that. I'm saying do as I say now, not as I do. Not as I do. Make sure that you stick with that cadence, and maybe try to target various audiences that are obviously outside of your country and your local environment. And, participate in so many different things and see which one sticks. That's what I do. That's what I did with, writing my books. I do my seminars. Obviously, I have the supplements in the gym and Physique Global. I just find if I continue down that path of doing all of them, one will work. And I started my own platform earlier this year called healthkick.com. That gives me another avenue of providing content. I do books. I do books in there, online books. I have a bi-monthly magazine that I'm able to contribute content. I offer coaching. I like to do so many different things because it fulfills me. I'm the kind of person that gets bored very quickly. If I go to a movie, I wonder if I can sit out the whole movie. I usually, if I go to a cinema, a lot of the time I walk out. I just find it very hard to sit still. So it's the same with my mentality. So I guess it comes down to that person's characteristic. But one thing that I will say is get used to doing the shit that you don't want to do. Practice a form of discipline that will have a transcendence effect on other areas of your life. Like I get my fiance to jump in the cold bath as well after the sauna, as much as she hates it, because I know that will have a positive effect on her art career, because she will get used to doing her art on the days that she doesn't want to do it, if she gets used to that form of discipline on a daily basis.
That's what it's all about, though. Everything in life is about discipline, because motivation will come and go. But if you're disciplined, you'll just get shit done regardless.
Exactly. We can't rely on motivation.
Out of curiosity, Kris, would you say you're a type A personality?
Yeah, probably would. Yeah, probably 100%.
Would. You're very, very similar to myself in that respect. Just the way you talk about having to have, like, you're not trying to have a goal, but you already have a goal. And what you were trying to tell me earlier in terms of like trying to optimize your health and longevity, because that in itself.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I definitely think about today, because I know whatever I do today will dictate tomorrow, as opposed to thinking, okay, being 100 years old from now. So, I always try to focus on being present today, because how often do we say, wow, it's the end of 2019 already nearly, because we're never really present within our conversation that we're having together right now. We're typing on our phone, or we're thinking about something else. Even we're eating when we're driving. We're never really present. When we're at a restaurant or a cafe with someone, and God forbid they should go to the toilet, we have to get our phone out immediately.
Yeah, it's scary.
Present and just focusing on the breath. And that's why I love doing my hybrid athleticism so much. I go out for a run, and a lot of the time I won't have my headphones, I won't have a podcast on, I won't have music. I just want to be present and just, focus on having no noise, because as kids, well, at my age anyway, as a kid, there wasn't a lot of these distractions. It was just silence, have an adventure on the farm. And I just try to take myself back to that and enjoy the peace and listen to the voice in my head that we don't often hear.
For me, that's why I love training so much. That's why I've started trying to train twice a day. Just for me, that's like headspace. And I love the purity of that moment, and nothing else matters. Like if you've got 200 kilos on your back or whatever, you're not thinking about trying to WhatsApp your mate or reply to an email. You're thinking like, don't let this crush me. You're trying to focus on what you're actually doing, because you have no other option but to focus on that, be present.
Yeah, exactly. Couldn't agree with you more.
So one last question to keep you, don't want to keep you too long, Kris. So in terms of the fitness industry, what do you think is the future of the fitness industry and where everything's going? Obviously like a globalized market with where we're at the moment.
That's a really good question. Wow, you stumped me there. I definitely think it's going to be, health orientated. I noticed that if you look at the statistics of events such as like Spartan, these Ninja Warrior gyms are popping up more. Yeah. And you see like the Ironman triathlon, or like 5Ks, or, you've got these park runs now in the UK. They are growing in popularity. And I think people are just really getting sick of, having a family, coming home from their office job and feeling like they have no purpose.
Be mundane.
There's no drive. So I see, a lot of, I expect an increase of more endurance and hybrid athleticism, and like Ninja Warrior type style of training, and something that's maybe a little more convenient, such as your Tabata hits, and maybe all over body workouts like push-pull workouts. I know they're there, but I think they will come in a little bit harder, knowing that people have less time on their hands and they need more convenience, and obviously AI as well. So Ryan DeLuca, the founder of bodybuilding.com, has now started Black Box, which is, he has these AI gyms, which are amazing, unbelievable. I was very suspicious of them until I actually tried them myself. And after 30 minutes of working out in one of those things, I burnt through like 500 calories. I was sweating buckets, and I felt sore the next day. But I felt entertained. The time went so quick as well. So I can see an expansion of that as well. Like,
what's an AI gym then?
Well, basically, it's artificial intelligence. So you're actually you basically put on the mask, you put on the goggles, if you wish, and you have these sensors on your wrists. So when you look at your hands, you actually see like a gamified version of yourself. It's unreal. And then he has
a Matrix.
Yeah, it's like the Matrix, but these cables come out at different aspects of the game. So you could be performing flies to increase your power in order for you to throw this bomb. You could be doing squats in order to kill this person on the other side of the court. You know, it's very hard for me to describe, but look up Black Box VR. And you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. But I think that is going to be a part of that future. You know, I'd say he's probably early to the market. He just opened a gym right next to the Twitter offices in San Francisco. And he's opening another one in Boise at the end of this month. And I see that's going to be part of that future, and biohacking as well. You know, there's the Health Optimization Summit that's going to be happening in London. I think it's the 14th and 15th. My friend Tim Gray is putting that on.
What month is that?
Next month. If you're there, it's over the same weekend as the Olympia. I don't know if you're in Vegas.
Yeah, no, I'm in the UK then, so I would love to.
Then I would strongly suggest that you go there.
What was it called again, Kris?
The Health Optimization Summit.
Anyone who wants to go, this is the podcast, drop me a message. I'll be there.
Yeah, for sure. It'll be phenomenal. Like, I was with Tim Gray, the organizer, a couple of weeks ago. We were in a banya. I don't know if you know what a banya is. It's like a Russian bath a couple of weeks ago in Shoreditch in London. You know, you're in the sauna, then you pull the bucket of cold water over your head, then you go into the plunge bath, and then you go into the lounge and like sip on herbal tea and chat and whatever, and then you start again. And, you know, we were talking in depth about the Health Optimization Summit. And he was on my podcast a couple of weeks ago, actually talking about it as well. And it is everything about health, biohacking, even the medical industry. They're going to have some phenomenal speakers there, like Amy Killen. Ben Pekulski is going to talk there as well. I was just speaking to him yesterday. Dave Asprey, the owner of Bulletproof, will be there talking. It'll be phenomenal. But do contact me after, because Tim did give me a code or link to get a discount on those tickets. I don't know it off the top of my head, but I could certainly send that. Yeah,
no, 100% I'll be up for that. So yeah, I'll take you up on that one. But
yeah, it'll be great. It'll be eye-opening. Believe me, if I could be there, I would be there for sure.
You're in the Olympia, I presume?
I'll probably be at the Olympia weekend, yeah.
No, I understand that. Well, I just want to say, we'll wrap it up there. I just want to say massive thank you for coming on the podcast, Kris. I'm a big fan. Got a wealth of knowledge, and there's some awesome information that's almost like cutting edge, which I don't think I have never even heard of before. We've discussed on here. So I think we've got insight into the future of fitness, which is quite awesome to hear. So for anyone to find out about you, Kris, what's the best way to get in touch, hear about your businesses and what you do?
Yeah, they can contact me either at my website. It's healthkick.com, and that's spelt with a K, K-I-K.com, healthkick.com. Or they can just go to my Instagram, and that's KRIS, Kris Gethin, Gethin.
Awesome stuff. Well, absolute pleasure, Kris, and hopefully we'll catch up soon.
All right, thank you very much. My pleasure, Charles.